the What's Good podcast.
Are you ready?
Hey, ladies and gents, this is your girl, Brianna Jovahn, with season 4 of What's Good podcast. And I just want to say thank you so much for tuning in. I am super excited to be here today because it's been a long break. You guys have been hanging there with us. But as you guys know, I feel like it's important to take those breaks so I can recharge, get myself together before jumping into a new project. So thank you so much for tuning into our very first episode. With that being stated, this season we're opening up just a little bit different. There's going to be 3 episodes published today. So after you listen to this one, make sure you listen to part 2 and part 3. Today for part 1, I do want to take time to celebrate and do some self-reflection of being in the podcast industry now for 2 whole years. I am super duper excited. And for people that's been with us from the very beginning, thank you so much for your support. And people who have been, just coming in after, first, second, third season, and even starting with the 4th season, thank you so much for joining us. So basically for part 1, that's what we're going to talk about today, is just my journey of being a podcaster for 2 years now. Part 2, I'm going to talk about my entrepreneurship journey. And then part 3, of course, will be what you can look forward to when it comes to season 4 of What's Good podcast. So let's go ahead and jump right into it. As I mentioned, part 1 will just be for me to celebrate 2 years of being a podcaster. It has been so much, and I'm just so excited to share with you guys. So I have, if you see me looking down, if you guys are watching, you're going to see me looking down because I do have some notes. But yeah, I just want to talk about things that I have experienced. So to go over some ups, as you guys know, I always do ups and downs and things of that nature. So for my ups, I was nominated for Best Podcast of the Year with the DFW Awards. So I think it was my sister-in-law, shout out to her. She was the one that nominated me for the award. And so of course, we had to go in and tell people to vote for us to make sure we are at the finalists. And I made the finalists. I didn't win, but I did. I was a part of the finalists. And I'm very grateful, very grateful for that opportunity, because looking at the people, as far as my counterparts that were involved, there were some amazing podcasters that I was up against. And I was just grateful to be within that range of people, especially with me starting off. I was only maybe a year in, maybe a year and a half, year and some change. And so I was just very excited to be a part of, Best Podcast of the Year, a nominee. And I was just so thankful for everybody that voted, everybody that supported, and just put me in the ring to be one of the finalists of that category. So that was awesome. Now I'm going to talk about some of the interviews that I've done within the span of these 2 years. I was able to, let's see. Well, let's start from here. The first season, I met Ashley Nicole. She's the owner of Geek Plus magazine. And with that being stated, before we move forward with this story, I just want to make it clear, whatever business that you are in, it is important to focus on relationships. If you're just doing this to make a quick change, you're going to get burned out quickly. And that's why when I first started the podcast, I wanted it to be a hobby at first, because I just wanted to have fun with this. So I'm glad I started it as a hobby, because I was able to make so many relationships. Now, with that being stated, I was interviewing Harry. Shout out to Harry. I was interviewing Harry. He was her client, Ashley Nicole. And then from there, she opened up an opportunity for me to interview on her platform with Geek Plus magazine. And so not only was I doing interviews for What's Good, I was also doing interviews, and I am still doing interviews for Geek Plus magazine, which has been a blessing. Also, with that being stated, it has opened up opportunities for me to actually interview celebrities. like Kirk Franklin, B. Simone, A1 from Love and Hip Hop. And I think that is it. And it's just been a true blessing, the fact that I've had opportunities to be in the same room with people like this. And it's not to glorify any of the celebrities, but to say that I've been able to interview a celebrity, I think that's a blessing because I just didn't ever think that I would be in those type of situations. I could tell I was nervous. I did let my nerves get in front of me a lot, but those were just learning lessons for me to be stronger. It doesn't matter who I interview. I need to bring that same energy to everybody that I interview. And so those were some of the learning lessons while interviewing those celebrities, just being ready to interview anybody at a lickety split, be ready at any time. And so my nerves were definitely bad looking at some of those interviews, but I can say it was a good time that I had those opportunities, because now when I do get in front of celebrities and, people of higher stature than, of course, what I am, I can just say this is another human being. I can just sit down with them and just talk to them and just relax and calm down. They're a human just like I am. Be cool. Because before I was kind of nervous, like, oh my gosh, I'm about to get in front of this person. But it has definitely helped me be better. So I want to thank Ashley for just handing me those opportunities, because it was just a ball to be on the red carpets and just interviewing people like that. So I just want to say thank you, Ashley. I mean, it just really helped me be stronger. I'm also on the platform for Audacity, which is with Ashley Nicole as well. Her podcast is called Audacity. I was able to interview Karan Joseph Raleigh, which is Lavita Jenkins' husband. You guys probably seen him in a lot of movies as well. It was just so cool. He was super laid back. We had a great conversation. We talked about Black Lives Matter, and not in the fact of just the movement. It was more deep level of what it meant to him, as far as like making sure that Black people love ourselves first. And I just wasn't expecting that conversation, because I know that'd be my thought process. Like, first off, we got to love ourselves, because I feel like a lot of people hate each other, and that's why they exude hate, because they don't know how to love themselves. And I feel like that's where we need to start. But for me to have a conversation like that with him, usually people will be like, okay, I just want to make sure I support the movement and that's it. And I'm like, no, I feel like it's stuff beyond the movement where we need to start. We need to love ourselves so we can learn how to love others, right? And so it was just really, really cool to have a conversation like that, because for my platform, I don't ever send questions to people. I don't ever want things to be rehearsed. I want things to be genuine. And the conversation that I had with Karan was definitely genuine. And I was just so thankful that it happened like that. And as I mentioned, just having these conversations with people in those type of status, it just helped me learn to just calm down. People are human. You're going to have conversations. Just go with the flow and stop thinking so hard. Just because you're in front of them, they make a little bit more money than you does not mean a thing. And that's for anybody that's listening. If you are an interviewer, we have to stop thinking so hard when we get in front of people that have more money and more resources than we do. At the end of the day, they are a person just like we are. They put on the same pants that we do. They have to brush their teeth like we do. They have to wash their face like we do. It's the same thing. The only thing is they may have just a little bit more resources than we do. So we definitely need to stop looking at people. They're at a higher level than I am, so I have to be this type of person when I get in front of them. No, you do not. No. And that was just a big thing that I had to learn, to understand that we are all the same. If they like me, cool. If they don't, then I just need to move around. We don't need to be in the same room. So that was definitely something that I've learned within these 2 years as well. So my interviewers understand, of course, do your research before you get in front of people, but at the same time, don't be different. Don't try to change yourself to be something that you're not just because you're in front of somebody. And then when you get in front of somebody else, you want to be homegirl, homeboy, and this, and that. Be consistent with your personality, be consistent with your character, be consistent with who you are. Because at the end of the day, that's where you're going to get your respect from, because you're consistent with the person that you are and you're genuine and you're authentic. So that is something huge I wanted to talk about on this part one, because that's been something that I've learned really within this podcast industry. All right. So another thing that I was able to accomplish, I hosted my first event and I hosted 2 panels. So for the very first episode, March 23rd, um, it was a live panel and it was with people that I graduated high school with. And I just put myself out there. I had never, ever hosted a panel, never, ever hosted an event. Well, I have done events, but not like on that type of caliber. So it was really, 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 really cool for me to do another event. Of course, with Geek Plus Magazine. I think it was mentorship business. I forgot what it was called, but she wanted me to do the panel. She wanted me to, of course, host the panel. And I thought that was really, really cool. Of course, there was stuff that I learned then because I had a co-host and I don't have a co-host on my podcast. So I had to learn the dynamics of, when to jump in, when to not jump in. Because let me tell you, I'm such a laid back person. If you want to take control of it, baby, do your thing. And so for some people, it may seem like I'm just passive and I'm just in the background. No, it's just, if it's not time for me to take charge, it's not for me to take charge. You let me know when you want me to speak up. So that was another thing that I'm learning, is when to speak up and when not to speak up. If you want to do your thing, do your thing. I'm not here to argue or, to dim your light, put a shadow on your sunshine. That is not me at all. If anything, I just want to support you. So if you feel like you got to do your thing, do your thing. And so that was something that I learned. Some people's like, you got to take more control and this, and that. It's going to come when it comes. But for my personality, if you want to do your thing, honey, do it. Okay. I'm not here to stop it. So that was one thing that I definitely learned with co-hosting that panel. It was cool. I had a great time. I asked my questions. I did my follow-up questions, but I guess I had to learn when to take control and when not to take control, basically. But yes, I was able to host 2 events, and that one I'm talking about, my very first one, I did a wrap-up event. Thinking about it, I did like a whole concert production because we had some poets, singers, rappers, vendor situation. It was pretty lit. And I thought about it later. I was like, yo, you kind of threw a whole concert. So I was really, really proud of the wrap up. And to know when I go to different pages, people that were involved, that they follow this person and this person supports that person, because I always want this to be a connection when it comes to my podcast. People that's listening, the whole reason I wanted to do this podcast, I know if I'm lost with the different brands, entrepreneurs, creatives in my city, then somebody else may be feeling the same way. So why not connect and fill in those gaps by basically introducing you guys to those brands, entrepreneurs, and creatives? Let me use my platform to do so. So my hope is that you gain something from it while you're listening. And the fact that I saw it in person, that it was happening as far as the connections, it just gave me so much joy. It just filled me up so much. And even a year later or 2 years later, I'm still seeing people connecting. And I just love it and I just enjoy it so much. So unfortunately, I wasn't able to do that for 2 and 3 because of the doggone pandemic. But I'm hoping that I can have another event soon to bring people together, of course, and just keep this thing rolling. Not only just when people are listening, but also in person, because I love human interaction. I love seeing people come together and just making magic happen. So that was basically another up for me was with the wrap up party. Um, what else? I also did last year during the pandemic, I co hosted my very first virtual event with Jasmine Stitt. Shout out to her, Walk by Faith. Her brand is just amazing. Everybody, you need to support her. Go look at her stuff. She has amazing ideas, tips, resources. She gives out so much free knowledge. When I say Jazz the plug, that's her name. She lived by that name. She the plug. She has so many ideas. She's always putting things out there. I think she has a Walk by Faith conference coming up. So if you view her page and you like it, support. Support the homie if you can. But yes, we did a whole virtual boot camp. Jonathan Jones put us together. Shout out to him. And then we came together and we were like, okay, this is what you do. This is what I do. This is my experience. This is your experience. We create a whole PowerPoint together and we sold it. We did a 3-hour seminar, maybe 3.5-hour seminar, just explaining our experiences as a podcaster, setting up the podcast, mindset, in person or virtual podcast setup, resources on how you can make money and monetize. It was just a whole thing and we enjoyed it. And the fact that people came back and was like, we loved it and we wanted more. I was like, dang, this was 3 hours. Y'all want more? It just let us know that we were on the right track. So before we did the podcast boot camp, I did create my own e-course, which is a journey to becoming a podcaster. And I don't talk about it a lot on the podcast. I don't know why, tripping, but I just pulled out some of the information from there and just added it on to the podcast boot camp, and it was a hit. And so I just want to say thank you to everybody that supported the podcast bootcamp. If you shared, if you liked, if you told somebody else that you knew wanted to be a podcaster and they signed up, even if they didn't sign up, the fact that you just spreaded the word, I'm just very thankful that you did it. So I'm excited about that. Excuse me. And also, I continued that process of journey to becoming a podcaster. I had somebody go ahead and buy the e-course, and she is now a podcaster. I'm so excited about her journey, and I actually relaunched it. So I can say with me being a podcaster within these 2 years, it has helped me monetize. As you guys know, for people who don't know, I quit my job. When was this? This is 2021. I quit my job 2019. The pandemic hit in 2020. The pandemic hit early 2020. So it was just a lot. So why not monetize my own experience, right? And that's exactly what happened. So it was really, really cool. I had to sit down and self-reflect like we're doing right now and just sell it. And that's what I did for a journey to become a podcaster. And it just was a hit. So I'm super excited about that. That was another monumental thing. But I think I kind of got off what my subject was about, but that's okay. That is okay. But yes. Oh, we were on the podcast boot camp. Yes. So the podcast boot camp, that's all we did was just take our own experience and we sold it. And so that was really, really cool. And I was super excited about that. So what else? Okay, I already talked about the e-course. That was next on my list. Now, talking about the downs of the podcasting. As I mentioned, I quit my job 2019, coming into 2020, trying to get my whole entrepreneurship journey together. The pandemic happened. I received my first client to actually help him start a podcast. So I was able to help him start a podcast, and I started helping him edit his podcast, which was awesome. When the pandemic hit, I lost him as a client because he couldn't afford my services anymore, unfortunately, because of the pandemic. That hurt me really bad because at the same time, I was getting ready to start recording again. And then also, that was my first client. I'm thinking I'm doing good. I'm still, podcasting as a full time at this point. Not only am I podcasting as a host, but I'm podcasting with in the background scene of helping people become podcasters and producing and things of that nature. So it was really, really cool. And then things stopped. As you guys know, I do a lot of my podcasting in person. So for me to figure out how to do this thing virtual, I had to teach myself things that I didn't know. I had to learn how to do Zoom. I had to figure out if Skype was going to be okay. I had to figure out what microphone worked, what microphone didn't work. How am I going to have good lighting? The people who may record with me, if they do it from a phone, how's that going to look? It was just a lot of negativity that was going through my head at this point. I was like, what do I do? What do I not do? And it was very, very sucky. So not only was I losing clients, I had to figure out how I was going to continue to record during the pandemic. It all worked, but at the same time, it was a situation where I had to keep my faith and understand that things will be okay. Another thing that I had to work on was organization. As I just mentioned, I was receiving clients. I was helping them become podcasters, editing their podcast, helping them with ideas as far as being a producer, while also doing my stuff, social media. I had to do, it was just XYZ, social media, recording. I edit my own podcast. Making sure that I am scheduling the right things, still doing my research on my guests to make sure I show up and show out when I get in front of them. All of that in one, I was becoming unorganized. I had to go ahead and get a scheduler. I had to figure out, Calendly or Acuity as far as, booking my guests. I had to get things in place. And then I also, which is a up, I am now building a team when it comes to What's Good podcast. I do actually have somebody that's helping me. We are a team right now. Shout out to Jordan. I am going to go ahead and say your name. Shout out to Jordan. She has been a blessing to me when it comes to the podcast. But now she's also helping me with What's Good Productions, which is my portion of helping my clients with the producing, the editing, and we're also doing social media. Now, we're not doing social media when it comes to community wise. We're not going to be DMing people. We're not going to be commenting on things. We're not doing anything like that. Only thing we're doing is making your profile look beautiful, creating flyers, making sure you have the right hashtags. If you have captions, we're going to go ahead and just copy and paste those captions. If you don't have captions, we can help you organize those things. But we're not commenting, we're not DMing, we're not doing any of that. Okay, that's where it stops. But that's What's Good production. So me balancing all of this was a lot to do by myself. So I'm glad that I'm able to have help, and there's nothing wrong with seeking help. If that's what you want, pray to God and say, hey, can you please send me the right people, the right team to help me with what I need in order for me to still carry out this vision that you have for me, God. So whatever that prayer looks like for you, but be specific in what you need. I've heard a lot of people saying, I received help and they stole from me, or I received help and they stole my information and created their own. I've heard so many scary stories. So please be specific in your prayer when it comes to receiving help. And make sure that you sit down and tell whomever is going to be on your team potentially, this is what I need from you. This is what this looks like. This is my brand. This is who I am, and things of that nature. When I first found out about my hiring process, I was actually interviewing people. I interviewed several people. I chopped them down to just a few, and then I hired my person who I have right now. So just make sure you have systems in place. Make sure that you have a vision for yourself, a mission statement for yourself, a goal on where you want your company to be. And then from there, I just feel like you have to be prepared first before you start inviting people into your team and your brand and your business, whatever the case may be. So I encourage you to do it, but at the same time, do the work on your end so you can be prepared to have a team, basically. So that is a up. I don't know. I didn't even mention me actually having people coming on. As far as like a up for the podcast. But as far as like I mentioned the down, it's just not being organized the way it should have been. I should I It was just a lot for me to balance. It's still an everyday thing that I work on because I like taking naps. I am a procrastinator. Um, Sometimes I scroll on Instagram too much. The list goes on, right? Those are just excuses, but I'm trying to do better every day. And so, unorganization. And basically me still trying to find my way. If you guys saw, what is it called? My Real Talk Thursdays. If you do follow me on my personal brand, Brianna Jovahn, I am still finding my way. I've realized that when it comes to social media, it is a place for people to troll and judge and just hurt people's feelings. And it's like I want to be careful with what I put out there because I don't want anybody coming at me crazy because I know how my mouth can be. And I just don't want anybody to hurt my feelings. So it's like I became guarded on the things that I wanted to share. With that being stated, when it came to What's Good podcast, it was like, what do I share and what do I not share? Because I still want people to take me serious. This is still a business for me, and I don't want them to shy away from anything because they don't like who Brianna is. After coming to a realization, people gonna like you, people not gonna like you. Forget them and everything that they got going on. I mean, only thing you can do is just pray for them. Because at one point it was like, should I put that I have a little drink here, I party a little here, I do a little toot there. Should I not? Because this was at a point where I stopped posting on Brianna Jovahn. I completely stopped posting on Brianna Jovahn. It was more so What's Good podcast. And so it was hitting me hard. What should I do and what should I not do? To where I'm at right now is just, I don't care. You're going to see Brianna the same way on social media, the same person that you see in person. Okay. I drink, I laugh, sometimes I curse people out. I dance. Let me hear it 9 and 2000. You're gonna see me drop it low and bring it back up. That's just the person that I am. So I don't want to be anything different from what you see on social media versus what you see in person. So I had to come to grips that I feel like it'll be best for me to just be honest with who I am. Shout out to Charlamagne the God. He said, I'd rather be a honest, what did he say? I'd rather be an honest sinner than a lying hypocrite. I thought that was so real. It hit me so hard because I'm like, that is so real. Like, I'd rather be honest and be the person that I am versus you find something and be like, oh, that ain't Brie. That's not who she says she is. This, and that. So when I first heard that with Charlamagne the God, I'm like, you know what, Brie, just be yourself at this point. I'm not perfect, Patty. I do what I want to do, so I'm gonna do it in front of y'all. So it gave me a huge relief to know that I just really want to show up for you guys. I want to support you where you are, so support me where I am. Just like I kind of got sidetracked a while ago. I definitely got sidetracked a while ago because I just have so many things I want to talk about, right? That's the same how I am in real life. I'm discombobulated. I'm clumsy. I run into walls. I just found a bruise on my hip the other day. That's just who I am. And I don't feel like I should change that just because I have a business or I'm on social media. And so that's why I wanted to put it out there and I'm still finding my way, is because that took a long time for me to figure out what should I do, what I should not do, versus me just being Brianna. And so for anybody that's listening that gets discouraged on, what should I do and what I should not do when it comes to social media, I feel like if you think too hard, you're going to talk yourself out of a lot of things. Because what you don't know is that what you're doing as far as these tests and these testimonies is going to help you in the long run, because it's going to help other people that's watching you. So I'm not perfect. I got a lot of things that I battle with on a daily. Okay. And as I mentioned, just being judged is one of them. Like, I hate being judged. I hate when people come at me a certain way, like, oh, breathe this, breathe that. And it's like, why are you putting me in this box? Don't put me in no box. Do not put me in a box, okay? Because you're only going to hurt yourself on the long run. So for people that's listening to this, basically all I'm saying is just be genuine and be kind to yourself. Be kind to yourself. You're going to make mistakes, and just show up to be the best person that you can be. People are going to like it. People are going to love it. People are going to hate it. And people are going to doubt you. But only thing that you can do is just be kind to yourself and just be the best person that you can be. That's it. And so I think that was like my biggest one that I fought with as being a podcast and just being a face of my brand. And it's a huge release for me to even say this right now. And so with that being stated, I think that's all my ups and my downs for the podcast. And it's something I'm just excited to see what's next as far as the future of me being a podcaster, who I'm going to cross, who I'm going to talk to. Shout out to Dr. Inky and Knowledge. Excuse me. Those are two gentlemen that I'm just super happy that I came across their platforms as well. Knowledge, I think he's in North Carolina. He's been super supportive from the very beginning. He reached out to me and told me he's been listening to my podcast, put me in touch with Dr. Inky, which is, I just love everything that he represents. He's kind of like a Dr. Sabi for people who have not heard of Dr. Inky. If you haven't heard of Dr. Inky, you need to go ahead and look him up right now. He's all about holistic healing and wellness. And basically, like I mentioned before, just being your best self. So look up Dr. Inky. When it comes to knowledge, he gives out a lot of knowledge. He's very supportive of the Black community, so please support him as well. Shout out to Josh, Timmy, and Rashad. I'll always call him Timmy. That's just my nickname to him. I cannot think of their podcast name right now. Oh my gosh, but I can just name them off the top. Smiles, Timmy, and Rashad. What Uncool Urban Podcast. Boom. Those fellas have just been amazing. Very supportive of the podcast from the very beginning. Shout out to Hear Ye. They were guests. I was a guest on, what is their podcast name? EJ and TJ. I was a guest on their podcast, so shout out to those fellas. Talking Greasy, Darnell, I love him so much. I just love the whole podcast community, period, when it comes to Dallas. Who else was I on? My Quality, I love her so much. Michaela, shout out to her. I've been on there twice now. Becky the Poet has always been amazing. I have been on her podcast because she focuses on poetry, but she's been on mine, but she's been supporting in the background. Shout out to Dennis and Kayla with Wolf Nation podcast. They started me out with producing the logo that you see, all that good stuff. Shout out to them. Shout out all my guests, first season, second season, and third season. People I've been recording with now for fourth season. The list goes on, and I'm just very, very thankful, guys, for people that's listening, people who have donated, people who send me, different reminders here and there how good I'm doing. My family, which just been amazing to me, my sister-in-law, my brother, my dad, my mom. They've just been very encouraging of everything that I'm doing when it comes to the podcast. Shout out to my cousin Felicia. For second season, she allowed me to use her office. Shout out to Miss Vanessa Java Lavender Coffee and Music Lounge off of Camp Wisdom, across from Waterburger and in front of Redbird, the mall. She has definitely allowed me to use her space, and I'm very, very grateful. So if you see that purple in the background, that is Java Lounge. Whoop whoop. Please go support the Black-owned coffee shop, and she has jazz there sometime. Shout out to Kamisha, a great cook there. But yeah, I think that is it. I just wanted to make sure I shouted out people who I've been on their podcast. They've been on my podcast. The support is there for you guys if you need me for anything. I just want to say I love the podcast industry. These past 2 years have just been a huge blessing. I can say I have done way more than I thought with this podcast, with just learning about the community of Dallas. Shout out to Victoria, the owner of For the Culture Studios. Just being in that atmosphere by itself, I've been able to learn and talk and just network with people within that space as well. I know with the pandemic, I haven't been able to show my face a lot, but it's just good to still see that people are doing well and people are still striving for greatness and still doing, great within their industry, their business, whatever. They're still doing great. And so I'm just excited about what's next, you guys. Thank you so much for supporting me. We are going to end it with the motivational moments. I think I've talked enough. I know I probably done rambled, talked in circles, ... I know I've done a lot. So we're just going to wrap it up with a motivational moment. It is a verse. The Lord is my rock, my fortress, and my deliverer. And this comes from Psalms chapter 18, verse 2. When I saw this, it just meant a lot to me because I do come across with anxiety a lot. And I'm going to talk about that in part 2. But I have to learn to let go of a lot because God is going to take on all of my troubles. He's not going to give me too much more than I can handle. So I have to know what I can control and do what I can there, and what I can't, just leave it up to God to take care of it because I can't do everything by myself. So when I first saw that He is my rock, that is who I need to lean on versus leaning on myself and leaning on my understanding, because it's not going to get me anywhere. And so that is the motivational moment for today. Just be on the lookout. We have launched 3 episodes today. So if you're listening to this right now, we are having 3 episodes out. This is part 1. Part 2 is about my entrepreneurship journey. And part 3 will be focused on what's for season 4. So I am done chatting with you guys and gals that's listening. If you are listening to this morning, noon, or night, thank you so much for supporting your girl. I am out, and I will see y'all in part 2. Deuces.